Welcome to the Entrpreneurs MBA, bringing you lessons from real-life entrepreneurs they don't teach in business school. Here's your host, business coach and marketing strategist, Adam Kipnes.
Welcome to today's episode of the Entrpreneurs MBA podcast, lessons from everyday entrepreneurs to help you in your business. My name is Adam Kipnes, your host. Today I am here with Brayand Ponciano, who is a local real estate investor, nomadic hustler, charitable, just superstar. He does a great charity with Together We Grow Phoenix, and his story is fantastic just because he tried the job thing. He had ups and downs in his life, and then one day he decided, all right, I'm going to go for it and do real estate. And now he owns apartment buildings. He flips stuff. He's got stuff in here in Cleveland. He's looking other places like Milwaukee and others. So welcome, Brayand. Thanks for being here.
Yeah, thank you, Adam. I appreciate it.
You got it. So tell us a little bit about your background. How did you start, and what made you decide, all right, I'm going to do something different than everyone else?
Well, before I get started with that, let me just put out my information to people so
yeah,
they know
definitely
how to get a hold of me and they know where to look. First of all, my first name is spelled Brayand. Last name Ponciano. I promise you that if you just put in my first name, I'll be the only person, or at least the first person that pops up. I guarantee you that's me. Second of all, I use profanity, so I'll try to keep it at a minimum here, but it is just something that I do on a regular basis. As he did mention, I do have a nonprofit here locally called Together We Grow Phoenix. You can find us at togetherwegrowphx.org, or preferably facebook.com/togetherwegrowphx. We facilitate events here for the local community. We specialize in helping homeless population and lower income families, and we do an event at least once a month. So at least 12 times a year, we're doing an event for different people.
And you've got one coming up soon, right? Socks and
underwear.
Yep.
So we call it Share a Pair. And basically, we're asking for donations. People are going to our PayPal link, and for every $10 donation, they get a raffle ticket. And so we partnered up with Ponderosa Stables, which is a local stable down by South Mountain.
Yep.
So for every $10, you get one raffle ticket. That raffle ticket's put you into a raffle, and you'll win a 1-hour ride for 2 people.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, so we wanted to make it, for what people can donate, but also make it a little bit more fun for everybody. As Adam did mention, I do make the majority of my money from real estate. So one of the things that I like to do is give back to the community. Just putting it out, a lot of general information. Me and my partner, Chris Ontiveros, we started something called the AZ Flip Guys. AZ Flip Guys is basically just 2 regular guys with no college education who didn't come from any money that are actively flipping and buying and holding and doing real estate. Just 2 regular average day Joes that came. You can find us on Facebook under AZ Flip Guys. So you can search under AZ Flip Guys. You can go to facebook.com/AZ Flip Guys. So A as in boy, Z as in zebra, Flip Guys. And basically we do an episode every Friday. We call it Flipping Friday, right at 12 noon Arizona time. And I say Arizona time because we don't have a time zone. In Arizona, we're our own time zone. So sometimes we're Pacific, sometimes we're Mountain. Wherever you're at, take a look at it Arizona time. But every single Friday at noon, not only do we do a live show where we talk about real estate, but we're answering questions live. So anybody can contact us if you have any interest in any aspect of real estate. If you're a seasoned investor, if you're buying and selling apartment complexes, to the guy that's got no money, you don't got 2 fucking pennies to rub together, and you want to learn about real estate, or you're currently wholesaling or currently flipping, and you want to ask 2 experts that are currently doing it to do this on a day-to-day basis. We don't have regular jobs. This is our jobs. Go to AZ Flip Guys. That's going to be awesome. I think that's all the stuff that I needed to say off the front. So anyway, if you guys need to get a hold of me, that's where you guys can get a hold of me. So I started off poor. There's no other way around it. My parents were immigrants from Guatemala. They came here to give me a better life. I was raised in the south part of LA. So a lot of people are familiar with a term called gangster rap.
Yeah.
A lot of people are familiar with Compton, Snoop Dogg, Dr. Dre, all those like the West Coast artists. Well, that was all my neighborhood. And everything that they said in those songs was 100% true. Like people didn't want to admit, and recently the movie came out Straight Outta Compton where they talked a section about it, how Ice Cube had wrote this song called "Fuck the Police."
Yeah.
And the reason why they were doing it was because there was such a huge number of police brutality, and the rest of the population didn't know about it until the whole Rodney King riots came out. And then it was like, you see, we've been telling you guys, like, we've wrote it in songs, we've been telling, but all of that stuff that you hear, the drug dealings, the prostitutions, the gang killings, I remember people being in gangs in elementary school. It was a rough upbringing. So I came from nothing. My parents were just very normal. Just regular working folk. My dad worked his butt off. He went to school, night school, to learn English. He decided that he wanted to learn computer-aided drafting. At that point, he was really just like working construction jobs and doing little sales jobs or whatever he could to try to keep the money on the table. My mom has always cleaned toilets. To this day, she still cleans toilets. And it was just they were very loving parents, but it was a very poor mentality that I grew up with. Okay. So growing up, we had no money, like no money whatsoever.
A recent episode, I interviewed Dr. Will Moreland, who lives here in town.
I know Will.
And Will's great. He's also from Compton. Mm-hmm. And one of the things we talked about is how having the strong parents at home kept you out of making some bad decisions and joining the gangs or selling drugs versus he sold candy when he was a little kid and you now are in the real estate world. How do you stay away from the allure of fast cash and drugs and gangs when you grow up in that environment?
I would agree with him. I think that the strong parents are the big portion of it. I think that, we were terrified of my dad, and not in a bad way. My dad was not an angry person. Like, I can't think back and say my dad was an angry man. But we knew that if we angered him, we would get our asses whooped. And we knew that what would anger him would be doing those type of things. Because they grew up in poverty, because they grew up in that environment, they were very well aware of the lures of it. So my parents were very strict. I had to come home right after school. Okay. There's no bullshit. Like, even if it was an after school program sponsored by the school, it took a lot of convincing just to let my parents let me go to these things. It wasn't a whole lot of, hey, let's go to the school dance or let's do this or let's do that. It wasn't like, hey, I'm going to go hang out at my friend's house. I'll be back tomorrow. No, a lot of that was just no.
Right.
And, they were very, very religious. So they just kind of kept me in church. They just kind of, they distracted me with that church. And a lot of it, back then, I used to be very angry at my parents for being so strict and not letting me do stuff. And now I look back and I was like, wow, I'm so glad. And I joke about it because I was a very good looking guy growing up in school, and there was a lot of women, they would just kind of flirt with me and kind of throw themselves at me. And they would invite me to parties. They'd be like, I'm going to be at this party, or hey, come to my house. My mom ain't going to be there. But I couldn't. I wanted to, but I couldn't because my parents wouldn't let me go. So I have this joke because my parents never talked to me about birth control either. Like, it was just basically don't do it. So I have this joke that I say, if my parents weren't as strict as they were, I would have had 10 kids running around right now. Because it was just that type of environment.
Right.
I remember girls being pregnant in junior high.
Oh, wow.
Like, for reals. These were, and it's hard for people that don't grow up in that environment to understand. It bothers me sometimes when people that grew up in a nice middle class family say, I don't understand why those people are killing themselves. It's unfortunate, but it's such a messed up mentality that you kind of have when growing in there. When I left California, when I left Los Angeles, I was 13, about to be 14. I was at the point where you are most likely going to be either joining a gang or accepting that you're always going to be getting punked. People are always going to come try to steal your money, mess with you, whatever. So it was a reality. And most people chose, I'm going to go hang with the gang. It wasn't because they wanted to be gangbangers. It wasn't because it was the cool thing to do. It was something that they had to do. A lot of times these people were broke. It's not like It's not like women go into prostitution because they have a lot of choices. It's not like men go into stealing and robbing because they have a lot of options. And they may have options, but they don't think they have options. And they don't know that they have options because that particular society, that particular culture keeps us in a very negative spot. I do open mic poetry as a way to kind of release my inner stress that I have sometimes. And the host is a black gentleman. And he was talking about the new movie that came out, Black Panther, and how all the black people are very proud of it.
Yep.
And he was like, but there's a certain section of black people that are talking crap about it and saying, well, that guy he must be with the Illuminati, or he must have signed a deal with the devil. And he's like, why can't we just accept that some people are just smart? Why is it that every time somebody does something good, it's even our people, we're automatically accusing them of being in witchcraft or having to sleep with somebody or having to do something that's not right thing, but it's built into our culture. So I really think of my parents, twofold. A, they were very strict initially, and B, they moved me to Phoenix. So even though when I moved to Phoenix, I ended up on the west side in Maryville, which is not the best neighborhood. It was middle America compared to Los Angeles.
Oh, I bet.
I remember my first day in Phoenix. We pack up everything, we unload, and Dad's like, just go check out the neighborhood. Here's your bikes, and I'll get the stuff unloaded. So I'm riding my bike, and I remember being freaked out because I could hear my wheels turning in the street. That's never happened in LA. Like that would never happen in any part of Los Angeles where it was so quiet like that.
So when you got on your bikes, were you busy like looking over your shoulder? Were you like in sort of protective mode, or were you still young enough to be like, wow, this is cool and this is different?
Both. Even though I came at the young age of 13, 14, the protectiveness had already been developed in it. And that's one of the things that people don't understand when dealing with minorities is that you're almost brought up to be protective by everybody around you. And as you know, it'd be ignorant for us to say that racism doesn't exist, but it would also be ignorant for us to say that it's as bad as it was back in the 1800s or early 1900s or whatever. However, the people that are teaching us, the people that were passing information, they experienced it. So I'm 35. When I was growing up, my parents grew up in the 60s or 70s. Their parents grew up in the 40s.
Right.
The amount of racism that my grandpa would have faced versus the amount of racism that I face today would have been tenfold, if so. And, I believe that racism will never go away. And I believe that a lot of times people are racist. It's not okay to admit it anymore. As to back when my grandpa's day, it was more than socially acceptable to admit it. Right. So they're defensive because of they happen. And then their kids have the exact same scenario. So they get extra defensive. So they teach their grandkids and their kids to be even defensive. So when you come to the point where I'm at, now everybody's out to get you. Now everybody's whatever. White people are bad. White people are evil. Be careful with all your neighbors. We're all poor. The person right next door claims to be your friend. He could rob you at any minute. You don't know where you're at. So that was part of it. But then at the same time, I was like, wow, this is pretty cool. Like I don't have to worry about people running up to me and trying to steal my bike. I'm not have to worry about somebody asking, yo, where are you from, man? Where are you from? Like that was a very common question in my childhood in Los Angeles, even at church. I was like, where are you from? That it basically meant, what gang are you affiliated with?
Right.
That, and there was no escaping it whatsoever. Even at a church, there was no escaping it. So yeah, it was a good thing. I hated it when I first moved here because I was like, this place sucks. It's boring. It's not like my Cali, like I'm used to. But as an adult, coming to Arizona was the best thing that ever happened to me. I would have most likely joined a gang. I was already kind of courting this little, they call it a clique, but it's really kind of like it's kind of like the minor leagues of a gang. So there was a big gang called, everybody's, because of the political climate, everybody's heard of MS-13 now.
Right.
MS-13 is a big gang over there, and their big rivals in Los Angeles was a gang called 18th Street Gang. So there was this little group in my junior high, and they were gang members, or they were they call them the homies, they call them the little homies. And so, but they're basically, it's like your Pee Wee League and then enter into gang affiliation and then eventually move up to the 18th Street. And this particular crew was associated with 18th Street, basically. So,
got it. So that was the direction that you were heading.
I would have been going down that direction. Yeah, it would have been pretty bad.
And then you come here to Phoenix, and was getting a job like the next step? Was that just, were your parents excited for you to go out and get a job, whether it be going to college or junior college or just go get a job?
Yeah,
that was probably the next step and in a positive way, from where you grew up, that if you had a job and now you have money in your pocket and now you can go on your own way and get your own place to live.
From growing up in poverty, my parents were taught that you need a job, you need to work as soon as you can. So I remember my very first job, I was 11-ish when I got it, and I was passing out flyers door to door. My parents worked for this company that did that, and then eventually they got me hooked up with one of the drivers there, and I was, it's kind of like a little kid passing out flyers.
Okay.
So when we moved to Arizona, their biggest thing was just like, we don't have any money. Don't ask us for any money. You don't qualify for free lunch, but we qualify for discount lunch. So here's $1, here's $5. This is going to last you for a week because you pay $1 per lunch at school.
Right.
So don't ask me for any more. I don't care if you want soda. I don't care if you want snacks. I don't care if your friends are going to the mall. Yeah. I don't care what's going on. Like,
no candy after school.
No, absolutely none of that. So I was kind of forced to work as fast as possible. And I did a lot of really odd jobs kind of growing up. And I think a lot of that prepared me for my adulthood as my disdain to corporate America. Because I never wanted, even when I worked, like I only had one regular job per se. And it was doing sales at Verizon Wireless. So even though I was in a retail location, it wasn't like I was going to an office and sitting behind a desk all day.
Right.
So even though my regular jobs weren't regular jobs, before then I was a waiter for some time. I was a delivery driver for some time. I was a mobile CNA for some time. Everything that I did was just kind of randomness, and it all stemmed from that early stage of just get a job.
Just get a job, bring in some money.
Yeah, if you wanted some money, get a job. And my parents were very adamant, once you hit this age, you're going to be paying rent. That was just that.
So you were paying rent whether you're living at home or whether you had your own place.
Yeah, well, yeah, basically. Yeah, basically.
So when you're doing these jobs and growing up, did you always know that you were going to have your own business and you were going to make your own way? Or was there something that triggered that inside of you?
Both, actually. So growing up, I knew that I was different. And it wasn't because I was trying to be different, because I was actually the complete opposite. I was trying to fit in as much as possible. And I was just a weird kid. And I didn't look at things the way people did. I remember I was probably like, I want to say a sophomore in high school. And we were in English class, and some guys sitting all the way in the back, they're doing the armpit fart noises, right? And they do that and they're laughing like it's the funniest thing in the world. And I'm like 15 years old and I'm, what, dude, this is not even funny. I understand trying to be a class clown, and if you're going to do something funny, then I'm going to laugh too.
Right.
But this is not even funny. Like, this is 5-year-old funny. We're 15 years old. And I remember thinking that way. So I always knew that I was going to be more than what I wanted. I remember, I always wanted to be a business person. I always wanted to be a businessman, up to a certain point in my childhood. And then once I hit about junior high, that was all knocked out of me and said, no, you just got to go. You're a working guy. You just got to go work. You just stop, get that business crap out of your head. That's for white people. You don't come from money. Like, you just focus on being a worker. So that kind of put me down that line. I remember that in growing up in LA, we were all poor. Every single one of us was poor. We all lived in apartment complexes. We were all poor. Very few of us had cable. We were just like very, very poor. I remember, I was the oldest and I had hand-me-downs. and everybody's neighborhood looked the same. Everybody was crappy. We went to one of my parents' house and their mom, she was a realtor and she sold Avon. And I just remember because she had the pink Cadillac.
Yep.
Like, yeah, she
made it big.
She made it big, right? So she lived in a gated community with a pool. She had a 2-story house with a pool. And when you're in Los Angeles, especially growing up in South LA, like you're like, man, just the fact that you have a pool means that you made it, and you got a 2-story house in a nice neighborhood in the suburbs, right, and a pool, like, man. So it triggered something in my mind that said, I want to get into business. Like, this is the only people out of all my friends, out of my parents' friends and family, associates, that has any money. That's kind of what I want to be. So that was my childhood. As I progressed moving forward, I realized that I'm not a good employee.
It's hard to work for someone else.
Yes.
When you've got just that hustler mentality and knowing that
it was very hard for me to respect my bosses as soon as I realized that I was smarter than them. And it didn't take a lot for me to realize that I was smarter than a lot of my bosses. And I'm not even saying that in a cocky way. It just was what it was. Like, I couldn't believe how dumb my bosses were, people were. And I remember looking up to be like, oh my God, you're a manager at so-and-so. You're, when I was 16 and I met somebody and they're like, oh my God, you're a manager at the Ross. Oh my, you must be doing real good. And then I found out what managers at Ross make and what that entails. And I'm like, man, you guys are freaking morons. Like, this sucks. This is not where I want to be going. So as I kept on quitting or getting fired from jobs, I would get bored very easily. I knew that this was just not my thing that I wanted to do. And I started looking for outside influence, outside help. Right about the age of 18, I started looking at the newspaper because I was always looking for jobs. I was always looking for side jobs. I never wanted to get stuck. Like, I never wanted to work in a call center or do any of those, because call centers are like the new equivalent of what the factory was when your dad was in the workforce, right?
Right.
That's what everybody did. I say that's like the blue collar job of today, because factories kind of no longer exist. We moved it into doing type of phone computer work. So I didn't want to do any of that. I had no freaking interest in doing any of that whatsoever. And I remember that I started looking at newspapers and I was answering ads, and a lot of these things were multi-level marketing companies. And they would say stuff like, meet a millionaire, come join this, learn from this free class, free seminar going on here. And I didn't know any different. And I knew that there was something different out there. So I started looking into that. I started going, dude, I was pitched freaking Amway so many times, through so many directions, through so many different people. And that's just one company, I got pitched pretty much everything that you can think of. And I was just like, man, I don't want to do the multi-level marketing. But I like the fact of working for yourself. I like the fact of controlling your own income. I like the fact of being able to kind of better yourself.
And just going to these events, a lot of people will say no.
Yes.
Right? They're just like, I'm too busy, The Housewives is on, those things are a scam, whatever. But you actually, at the age of 18, 19, said, all right, let me go and check this out and find out what it's all about. And even though you didn't want to do it, it led you down a path of saying, I can work for myself. Exactly. I don't have to work for anybody else.
It opened up my mind to the possibility of working for myself. And I think one of the things that happens the most, and this goes to anybody listening who may think that, I'm not smart enough. I'm a woman. I'm gay. I'm a man. I used to be like, I'm young, I'm brown, and I'm bald head. Like, and I like the Raiders, right? So that's like all the strikes against me. That's like painting. Like, seriously, I had to stop wearing my Raiders stuff because people would think I'm a fucking gangbanger. Like, it was automatically, I was going to get pulled over. They just saw a brown guy with short hair wearing Raiders colors and you're a gang member. So I had that going against me the whole time. But I started noticing that people don't care about that as long as you know how to make them money. If you can make them money, if you can help them in one way or the other, whatever their problem might be. But I started going to these things and I'm like, okay, well, they're talking to this person and this person's making money and this person hit the gold level and this person's doing this and this person's making $2,000 a month passively and this person, and I was so broke that I thought if I would make $2,000 a month, I was good. I was like, I'm making $500 a week, $2,000 a month. I could get a place for, a few $800 or $700. That leaves me enough money to party and drink, and I'm good with $2,000 a month. And I'm looking at them, and they're making it, and they're passive, and they're doing it, and they're enjoying themselves. And I'm like, I don't want this, but I know that this is a possibility. And it introduced me to concepts, and it kind of expanded my mind as to things that I didn't know. So from there, I said, I don't want to do that, but I want to find something to do for myself. And I remembered back the lady that I told you with the nice house and the Mary Kay.
Yep.
And
you went to sell Mary Kay?
Yeah, so I didn't want to do Mary Kay. I didn't want the pink Cadillac. But I also remembered that she did real estate. I remembered that she was a realtor. And I said, you know what? Every rich person that I've met through these network marketing stuff has always expressed some type of interest in real estate. Either they're buying a house, either they're selling a house or whatever, but money moves through real estate. I had that epiphany at that point. And I was like, maybe I should think about maybe becoming a realtor or kind of going down that road. And as I said, I worked odd jobs, I worked odd hours, I worked all kinds of crazy stuff. I didn't have cable or any of that stuff going on, so it was a bunch of free TV. And at free TV, certain days, especially certain times, is a lot of infomercials.
Yep.
And back at that, we're talking about we're talking about early 2000s. Carlton Sheets was all over the place. No money down. How to buy houses, no money down, with no credit or whatever that course was.
Oh, right? And he was saying things you can walk away with the keys and a check for $30,000, $40,000.
Yes,
he was on all the time.
All the time. And I was sitting there like, I want to do that. I want to, man, if I could just flip a house, if I could just find a way to make a $30,000 check, that would be the most amazing thing in the world. So I started looking into that realm. And the thing about it is that I didn't have any money. I had nobody to turn to for any money. I didn't have any credit cards. So it's not like I could charge the program to a credit card. It's not like I could borrow the money to buy the program. So I didn't even have that option to buy the program.
Yep.
So I had to find other avenues to get into the business. And as I started kind of searching and started doing, I remember that I ended up, I was like, you know what, man, the real estate stuff is cool, but I need money right now. I need to go get a job somewhere, right? So I started working at some job, and I said, I'm not going to do this crap no more. I'm going to go be a massage therapist, because at least that way I can start my own business. So I can start my own massage business, but it'll still be my own business.
Okay.
So I went to school for that, and as I was in school for that, I remember vividly graduating. Everybody's like, you're so awesome, you made the honors list or whatever. And I said, yeah, but I don't think I want to be massaging people. I think I'd rather be the one receiving massages than the one giving the massages. And people were just kind of looking at me weird. And I said, yeah, that's fine. I had my degree, so I was looking for a job at this point. I met a few different chiropractors, and they were like, yeah, you can come work for me or come work for here. But nothing was guaranteed. There wasn't, everything was kind of up in the air per se, depending on what clients they had. They may not need me for a week or two. They may need me for, twice next week. I didn't know where I was getting. So eventually I got into sales. I was same thing, answering the ads through newspapers. I found this ad that said sales, work today, make money today. And I was like, I need money today.
That's got to sound pretty good when you're in that situation.
You're broke as hell. And literally I was selling crap business to business, door to door. And I'm not going to go too deep into that story, but it was face-to-face direct sales. And for anybody out there that is truly serious of being successful in any aspect of life, preferably business, do direct sales for some point. Like, force yourself to do direct, face-to-face direct sales. Sell something that people have no interest in buying. Then you know how to sell. And I remember the guy who trained me to do the direct sales. I remember him because we used to show up to this warehouse, and it was literally a warehouse where they were shipped crap from. So they would ship it from China to Los Angeles, and then they would truck it to Phoenix. And it was coloring books, knife sets, lighters, attaché bags, water guns. I mean, crap. Like, it was impulse selling. They made no quarrels about it. It was we're teaching you how to sell based on impulse. You're gonna sell people something that nobody woke up saying, I need a water gun today. But if you do this, and do this way and this way, you're gonna end up selling water guns. And you don't even have to be good. You just have to say what we tell you and knock on enough doors with confidence. And we used to play the 10 no game. So as you can imagine, we're all young, right?
Yep.
Because what else? We're all young and broke. Who else would be doing that type of job? Like, you're not going to give up your job to go do that, right?
I sold really nice knives door to door.
You did Cutco?
Yeah, I did Cutco.
I did Cutco for a bit too.
Hey, with at Cutco, you actually have to come up with cash. I think I had to lay out $250, $300 for my knives, and then it was, for those who don't know, it's essentially like the Ginsu commercial, only you're doing it door to door. But they're really high end, really nice knives.
Cutco's still available.
Yeah, they last forever too.
Yeah,
they're great knives, but you don't knock on someone's door and say, "Hey, it's Tuesday at 10 a.m. You want to drop $500 on a knife set?"
Yeah. Well, the thing about it is that most likely, especially if you're doing it without an appointment, you're just door knocking. Nobody woke up that day saying, "Hey, you know what? I want to spend $500 on a knife set," right?
Exactly.
Maybe somebody said, "Oh, you know what? I was just talking to my wife about getting new knives. Why don't you come in and tell me about it?" But that's such a long shot. Like, that's not going to happen, right? So because the people training us knew that we were going to run into a lot of no's, they made up this thing called the 10 no game, where your goal was to get 10 no's in a row. So you're purposely trying to get 10 no's in a row. And it never happened. Ever happened. You might get them because yours was a higher ticket item. Mine was $5, $10, $20, whatever.
Yep.
So it was a lot lower. So we did, I think one time I got it up to like 7 or 8. Never once did I get 10 no's in a row. So we did that, and it was fun. It was fine, but I didn't make a lot of money. I do remember the guy training us, though. He said very vividly, if you can do this for a few months, I will guarantee you that you never have problem finding work ever, as long as you live as an adult. I guarantee you can go to any place and get any job. And God, he was right. He was so right. I went into sales after that, obviously because I did sales, but I went into more of a corporate structure with everything else. I was working for this company called Singular, which bought out AT&T, and then eventually, they actually ended up buying AT&T. AT&T went bankrupt.
Right.
It was SN Cellular that ended up buying Singular, that also went bankrupt. And then they ended up buying AT&T, and then they made it into what we now AT&T. They literally paid $1 billion for the logo, for the name and logo. They didn't take any of their clients because they already had all their clients. It was insane. But nonetheless, though, I was working at this corporate job, and I was kind of doing my thing, and I was doing very good. The people, my coworkers, my managers, they couldn't figure out how I was so good at sales. While I was cussing, I had short hair, brown skin, I was young, my pants sagging or whatever else, and they couldn't figure out how I was doing, but they did. Eventually they went, I started in the West Side, which is the Hispanic neighborhood. Then they ended up moving me to a nicer Metro Center area. Then they moved me to the Happy Valley area, where it was primarily white folks. They were middle class white folks and whatever. And I remember very, very vividly, I was working at Deer Valley, which is another pretty good neighborhood here in the Phoenix area.
Yep.
And I remember saying, "Okay, man, finally, I'm out of the ghetto. I don't have to worry about everybody trying to be cheap with everything. I can finally sell stuff." It wasn't that case. I quickly realized that the people that I thought that had it didn't have anything. And they just had nicer cars, nicer houses, and higher bills. but they were still living paycheck to paycheck.
They were still equally as broke.
Equally as broke. They were still trying to get whatever they could for free. They were still trying to not spend any money. They were still trying to do everything. And I'm like, wow, man, this is like, I don't know if I want to do this, cause I'm leading down the same path. By this point, I had moved out of Maryville. So now I had a nice little condo somewhere, right? And then eventually I would have ended up moving in this neighborhood, but I would have ended up just like them. So I ended up leaving that job. I said, I don't want this anymore. And I ended up, same thing, going online. I found a place that sold manufactured homes. It was Bisbee Home Sales, and I'm not even sure if they're still around or not. But basically, they sold manufactured homes. So they said, look, man, we're willing to give you a job. You're awesome at sales. Come in, and you're hired. And I was like, cool, fine. This is real estate-ish, right?
Right.
At least it's my ground into real estate.
So your parents taught you the work ethic, and then you learned selling door to door, how to sell.
Yes.
And then when you were at Singular selling phones, you learned about people.
Yes.
And you probably were able to begin to read people.
Yes.
And know, all right, it looks like they have money, and for anyone in Arizona, everyone's got a BMW, so it's really not that exciting a thing around here, but they've got a BMW, they can't pay their cell phone bill.
Yes.
And now you would get your first step into real estate.
Yes.
So now it starts to become
yes
real and different.
And it was horrible, by the way. That shit sucked donkey dick. Oh my God, that was horrible. Horrible. So I was working for Bisbee, and they're like, look, you're going to be selling houses. Like, you're going to be selling, but the only difference is instead of selling a house, you're going to sell a manufactured home for people that, whatever. So I literally sat at this office all day waiting for somebody to walk in. As soon as they would walk in, I would get some information, and then I would walk them through and show them these model houses. So you're thinking a manufactured home, a model home in the middle of the summer with no air conditioning going, and all the windows closed, and you're walking in this hot box from one hot box to the other, talking to these people, hoping that they have enough money or good credit enough to be able to finance this, hoping that they may have a piece of land, or hoping that you can connect with the realtor that has a piece of land so you can sell them this stuff and you'll make some crappy commission.
Right, because they're coming in and they're looking at a model.
Yes.
But now they can't buy it. I mean, they can give you a little bit of money, but they got to move it. They got to, or have it built, or
yes. And it was like you're trying to sell them this big package loan where it would cover the land, the moving, the installation, and the property. And before you know it, they were spending almost as much as they would on a house anyway. But I had a lot of time in my hands. So I was on Craigslist all the time, just looking for opportunities. One of the ads that came across my Craigslist said, real estate investor looking to teach a few people that are willing to work hard, contact me. Now, I had responded to similar ads many, many, many times. There used to be something nationwide called Nuverish. Mm-hmm. Nuverish
I know it,
was a multi-level marketing company for real estate education. That's really what it was.
Right.
They got shut down by the government and came back under the new name Renata's. Same thing, guys. It's a multi-level marketing company that sells real estate education. They promote it as a community, but it's basically you go in and they tell you to bring in your friend, right?
Right.
So I had been to that many times. I had quote unquote fell for that ad many, many times. So I'm sitting at this office. I had just walked some customer through some crappy mobile, knowing goddamn well that he had no money to rub together, knowing goddamn well that he wouldn't qualify for a loan. And I just went back to my desk and I'm just like, man, I'm bored out of my ass. And I'm looking and I see this ad and I said, you know what? It's probably another Nuberish pitch. But I'm going to just show up and maybe I meet somebody there and maybe something will happen. Well, it turns out that the guy was a real investor. Turns out that he didn't have a product that he was selling. Turns out that so this guy was a guy locally named Derek Jarr. Derek Jarr used to be partners with this other guy named Troy Funk. Together they owned a company called Cutting Deals, which was really big back in like 05-ish, 06-ish. They were doing a lot of stuff. I mean, they got so big that they even started like a brokerage and shit. Well, the guy Derek started noticing that Troy was doing some shady business practices that he was just not a part of. So he said, you know what? I got to get the hell out of here before this comes crashing down. And it did. It came crashing down real hard on Troy Funk.
Yeah.
But And actually, there was a point in our business, and this is a lesson for anybody that wants to get in business, specifically real estate. It's all a relationship business. And we would joke around that you don't want to get Troy funked, because Troy was literally blackballed from our real estate community here locally, because he took a lot of people's money promising these big development deal and then just ran with it, like literally millions of dollars from people's savings, and he just ran with it. Nonetheless, though, this guy Derek is like, I'm completely separating from him. I'm turning over the office, all the equipment, everything. So I just need a group of 4 or 5 guys that are willing to work really hard. I'm willing to provide the leads. You guys go do whatever you have to do to get the deal, and I'll pay you a percentage. And that was it. My very first experience with real estate investing came from that office. My very first experience with door knocking came from that office. So there were, I was like, what do I do? They're like, well, you send out mailers to these people. I don't have any money. Well, you put out bandit signs. I don't have any money either. Well, you do this. Crap, I can't do any of that. How can I start with no money, right? And they told me the concept of door knocking. That was a big thing. Like, we're going to give you a list of pre-foreclosures, and then you're going to go knock on that door. Like, you're just going to go knock on their door and say, hey, are you guys willing to sell your house? If you are, great. And you got a lot of go fuck yourselves. I'm not in debt. The bank is wrong. There's a mistake. You got a whole lot of that. But the very first guy that took me door knocking was a guy named Brayand North, who now owns North & Co., which is one of the most prestigious brokerages here in town, real estate brokerages. But it was basically, here's leads. You put your own time, you put your own energy, you put your own gas. And if you happen to get a deal, bring it to me, and then we'll close the deal for you. And that's all it was. And I used to live on the west side of Phoenix, and the first office that we had was over in Old Town Scottsdale, which was probably, for you guys that don't know, probably a good 30 to 45 minute drive away. I didn't have a computer. I didn't even have a fax machine. I didn't have a printer. So the only way that I could get leads was to literally drive in the morning from West Phoenix to Scottsdale to go pick up leads, to then drive back to West Phoenix so then I can door knock. And I did that for 9 months before I closed the deal. So 9 months of no making any money, of not getting a paycheck, of everybody telling you you're crazy.
So 9 months of knocking on doors to people who you knew were about to lose their house.
Yes.
So they had all sorts of other shit going on. And you didn't even have any knives to sell them.
No.
At the same time.
No.
So why would you do that for 9 months? Like, what was it that said it's going to work?
By that point, I had already made up my mind that I wanted to be a real estate investor. I knew, I had looked at real estate and I said, yeah, you know what? I could be a realtor, but I don't think that's the route that I want to go. I didn't have a nice car. I didn't have any nice clothing. I didn't feel like driving people around to look at houses. So I was just like, that's not the route that I want to go. A real estate investor. And as I said, a lot of the infomercials at night were real estate investors. You had your Dean Graciosis, you had your Carlston Sheets, you had your Armando Montelagos, you had all these people that had all these seminars teaching how to flip houses, how to do, wholesale, take advantage of the market. The real estate market is hot. There was people in our church, because this was back in 04, 05, when you didn't even have to know. You could be a complete idiot, completely overpay for a house and make money in a few months because the market was just going up that crazy.
Right.
The inflation was just nuts. So I was like, man, I need to get into this stuff. I need to figure out a way to make money. And I remember some guy at church who was a complete dumbass, not because he was a bad person, but he was just very uneducated, very, very country type folk. And he bought some piece of land and made like $30,000 by selling it a few months later. And I was like, man, I should be getting into this one way or the other. So by that point, I was determined to be in real estate. I knew that that's where I wanted to go. I had been to enough of the New Barish meetings to see other people. I had actually connected with some of those people that were actually doing it. Some of them were students of the New Barish, or some of them were just other audience members that I had met while I was there. And I knew that it was a possibility, but I didn't really know how it worked. I didn't really know what I was doing. So I was like, this is no different than selling crap door to door. but I'm just knocking at people's doors. The only difference is if this one person says yes, I'm going to make a few $1,000s versus if somebody says yes on the other one, I would have made a few dollars.
So you could have sold, in your mind, you could have sold plastic water guns or whatever for 9 months.
Done that for 9 months and not make enough money, as much money as I did.
As you did on that first deal. Yeah. And what happened when you got that first deal? When that first person was like, yeah, this sounds good. How did you react?
I remember that I was so scared to go to people's houses and knock on their door because I'm telling them, hey, we pay cash for houses, and I'm hoping that my car starts. So I in my mind, I always thought that they were going to make fun of me or be like, yeah, right, you don't have the money, you're just saying that, but they never did. And I showed up to this house. The lady happened to come to the door. I talked to her and I said, look, here's what's going on. Your property got put on this list. Here's what I can tell you. You are in foreclosure because these people don't make a mistake, and there will be a bunch of people coming to knock on your door. It was such a saturated door knocking market back then because pre-foreclosures were the big thing in the wholesale world, in the investing world. A lot of people were getting deals through pre-foreclosures. And back then, short sales were just finally kind of like starting to come around. They hadn't really picked up.
This was the beginning of things turning over in the market.
So I had quote unquote got a few deals, but they were all short sales. So you would find somebody that'd be like, yeah, I would love your help, and then come to find out they're upside down. Well, at that point of the time frame in real estate here in Phoenix, it was probably 1 out of 10, 1 out of 20 short sales that got accepted. So I had like 3 of them in the pipeline, none of them closed. But this was like my first wholesale. This was like property. The lady had equity. Here's what's going on. So I approached her. I said, look, here's what's going to happen. You're going to foreclose if you don't take care of this. Obviously, you can lie to me, but you wouldn't be in this scenario if you had the money to pay all your back taxes and everything else. And by the way, once you get into foreclosure, now you got to pay attorney's fees and everything else to kind of go with it. And I also promise you that there's going to be people knocking on your door. You're going to get a lot of people knocking on your door. Before I even finished talking, there was 2 guys that got out of the car literally waiting for me to stop talking to her so they can come and talk to her. And she was like, you know what? I like you. Like, there's something that I don't like about them. I like you. Give me your phone number. Here's my information. Call me tomorrow and we'll talk about it. So I was like, I was on cloud 9, right? I'm heel clicking. I'm guessing. I'm doing all these crazy things. And it took a little bit for that property to come around. But it eventually did. And then it was like that property came, but then my second wholesale deal, which they both closed around the same time because the first one just had a lot of issues that we need to deal with. The second one, the guy was like, yeah, man, I'll sell you the property. Like, hell yeah, that sounds good. Tell me where to sign. So I call Brian and he shows up and we sign the paperwork and everything's good to go. Turns out that the guy had signed with another investor. They showed up the next day offering him to pay him like $2,000 more. So it became this big old dispute thing, and we had to threaten him with lawsuits and all kinds of crazy things that were going on. So we did all these things, finally got both deals closed, and my portion of the proceeds was like $5,000. I didn't even have a bank account.
See, you got $5,000, but you had no place to put it.
Yes. Well, I had a check for $5,000. So I went to the bank, and now I mind you, I grew up poor. Never once had I had a check for $5,000 in my hands. The highest amounts of checks that I ever had was probably like $1,500 or maybe $2,000, and that came from my tax returns, But I've never had like $5,000. I'm like, this is freaking awesome. I didn't have a bank account. I went to his bank, and he's like, yeah, just take it to my bank and they'll cash it for you. So I did, and they gave me $5,000 cash. And I'm sitting around and driving this crappy, shitty car that I had. I think it was a Saturn Ion or some crap. I remember those crappy Saturn Ions.
I do.
And I was just like, man, this is real. Like, this is for reals. And I remember holding the money because when I was a street peddler, when I was selling all that crap on the street, it was pretty much a cash business. And there would be times where I would walk around with the water money in my pocket, but I knew that most of that money wasn't mine. Most of that money needed to go back to pay for the product that I just sold. So this was the first time amount where I had even a bigger, so not only did I have a big wad of money, but when the first time that I had a lot of money, it was a bunch of ones and fives. These are all, 20s and 50s and hundreds. So, and I felt so empowered, and I felt so validated for the 9 months of really struggling my ass off to make it, for being the only guy in that office that wasn't white, for being the only guy in that office that wasn't college educated. Because eventually when Derek started his company, he started bringing in more people. I was one of like the original door knockers. And out of the original 6 of us, I was the only one that wasn't college educated. Not only was I not college educated, but a lot of these other people, like one guy, his grandpa had a wing named after him at Kansas State University because he donated so much money. The other guy, his dad was the coach for the University of North Carolina Tar Heels, a football coach. So, these are middle to upper middle class to even upper class people. And I'm here, with no education, listening to gangster rap, cussing like a sailor, and I was able to make a check. And it just felt like an amazing thing. But I think more than anything, it made me realize that the real estate stuff was for reals. It wasn't a bunch of bullshit. It wasn't somebody yanking my chain. I could see it physically doing it, and then more importantly, I could make it happen. So it opened my eyes to, I went from doing no deals for 9 months to making about 25,000 in the next 3 months. Coming from a place where my mom probably made $25,000 that year, I was just, man, you couldn't tell me nothing. I mean, I was 23-ish or something. That's mine. I was 23-ish, and I was just, nobody could tell me anything. I thought I knew it all, did it all. And eventually, I ended up losing all. Eventually the market crashed, and I came crashing down with it. I ended up going back to corporate America for a year, and I said, man, I can't do this shit no more. It was 2008-ish, because I was in the pre-foreclosure market. The market started crumbling for me before. So by the end of 2007, it was already getting tough in my section of real estate. By 2008 is when it started getting tough for everybody. By 2009, we had the recession, right?
Right.
So 2008, I went to work for a regular job. By 2009, the recession was in full motion. People were saying recession all the time. And I said, you know what? I can't stand my job anymore. Yeah, I'm making $80,000 a year. Yeah, I get benefits and vacation and whatever, but I'm just not happy. And neither is any of my coworkers, and I don't want to be like them. I'm going to quit, and I'm going to do real estate. And everybody thought I was crazy. They were like, it's the middle of the recession. And, being that I was working for Verizon, they had this, it was almost like a way to brag and saying, well, everybody else might be losing their jobs, but we're a utility. And based on the history, utilities not only, they never run out of work. Utilities are always going to be a necessity. So you don't have to worry about it. And people bought it. People bought it, hook, line, and sinker. They were just there. And I just remember that I didn't want to be that. I remember that I said, absolutely not. So eventually I decided that I don't care. I wanted to get my license. And I wanted to just do anything in real estate. Went to go get my license. Didn't take my test, even though I took my courses. Met a guy there. We did loan mods for a bit. That didn't work out. Then I was like, I am not going back to corporate America. I told everybody that I wasn't. I made such a big deal that I wasn't going to come back, that now I'm committed not to come back. There's a saying, burn the boat.
Yep.
And there's a story about Cortez when he comes to the Americas, and they were vastly outnumbered by the native Mexicans, the Indians. And Cortez literally had his men burn the boat. And he said, we're either going to conquer this place or we're going to die, but there's no going back. No going back was absolutely not an option. And that's what I did. That's what I did with corporate America. I made such a big deal to all my friends, all my family, all my coworkers. Fuck you. I'm never going to come back. This place sucks. That had I come back, I would have been, it would have been basically like me admitting defeat. and saying things are never going to get better.
Right. You're not putting your tail between your legs and going back.
So, and I promise you, this is 100.
And you knew that real estate worked. Like you had made money and you saw people. So you knew that it worked. Now you just had to figure out, all right, how do I make it work in this new environment?
And here was my thought process was we just hit the recession. Every wannabe investor that was making money over the last 4 or 5 years has now been completely washed away. Only the real investors exist now. Because there were still people making money in 09, 10, 11, as you well know.
Yep. But that's when I was involved, and there were deals everywhere.
Everywhere. But according to the general public, there wasn't. According to the news, this was the worst time to be in real estate. According to the general conception, real estate was just a losing man's bet. And everybody had a story about how they lost their ass or somebody that they knew lost their ass in real estate. Hell, my parents lost their ass because they were dumb. They were pulling out money from their house like it was a fucking credit card. They were buying houses that they shouldn't even been able to get loans for. It was insane. But I realized that was the thing, and I said, you know what? If I can figure out how to get into real estate right now, at this point, I will only be dealing with people that know what the hell they're doing, because that's the only people left in real estate at this point. Mm-hmm. And I know that there's a way to do what I know how to do and what I did. But by that point, like pre-foreclosure lists were completely useless at that point because nobody had any equity. It was very hard for people to have equity in that time when the market just came crashing down. So I said, you know what? I need to get into real estate, but I need to make some money right now. I went back to selling stuff out in the street. And this time, instead of selling little stuff, I was selling booklets, discount coupon booklets that benefiting the National Children's Cancer Foundation. And basically, I would go, found it on the newspaper. Guy said, I'm going to pay you $16 an hour, and you just got to go door to door sell this crap. And I was like, shit, I need money. You'll pay me today? Hell yeah, $16 an hour. So I went. And he took me to a really nice neighborhood, and I look like I do. So these people were not answering the door. And if they weren't giving me the time of day. So he was basing his $16 an hour on the average sale. If you sell X amount of books per hour, then I'll gladly pay you this shit. As he kind of started there, he's like, dude, you're not selling anything. Like, are you sure you know how to sell? And I'm like, come on, bro. I know how to fucking sell. And I'm like, dude, these people are just not giving me. So he thought I was lying. He tagged along with me to a few doors, and he was like, wow, these people are just not even letting you talk. And I said, that's what I'm fucking telling you. He's like, man, I can't continue paying you $16 an hour for you not being able to sell anything. So here's what I can do. I can either give you the $80 that I owe you for this amount of time, or I can give you $80 worth of books. We sell the books for $10, but my price to you would be $5. So I would give you 16 books for the same amount of money that I owe you. And I said, yeah, I'll take the books. I know I could sell. It's just I can't sell in your little preppy white neighborhood, but I know that I could sell. So instead of going to house, I went business to business, just like I used to do with the fucking attaché bags. And I made $160 the next day, and I made it in like 4 hours. And I said, hell yeah, let me go do this, right? So I did that for a few months to pay the bills, but eventually it was getting hot again, and I didn't feel like walking business to business in the summertime. It's just, I've already been there, done that. I didn't want to do that. So I needed to find money because I was going to get it back into real estate, come hell or high water. But I needed to make money to survive, so I didn't have to go back to corporate America. I remember that I lost my house at that point. I was living at a friend's house. She let me move in, and she gave me discounted rent for the first few months, just so I can kind of get on my feet. So I'm getting on my feet, and I still have to make money, right? So I'm doing the little attaché stuff, and I come home one day, and I'm just like, I'm done. Like, it's hot out there. I'm done walking from business to business. I'm only making $100 a day. Like, this is not really what I want to be doing. So I shit you not, Adam. This is 100% true. I wrote down a list of every single thing that I could think of to make money. Every single possible thing. I want to do this. I want to do that. I want to be here. I want to be there. And all that list, and then the list of everything that I thought could make money. And then I wrote another list of the pros and cons of that. And like, it would be awesome to be a professional athlete, but I'm not athletic. I don't have the time. I'm already too old. So that's out the window. And everything that I could think of to make money. And then boom, boom, boom. And then eventually I got down to what I actually can do for money. And I split that list into two, legal and illegal activities. And then I did the exact same thing that I mentioned. I put a pro and con list to these activities. And through the power of deduction, I wasn't going to sell drugs. I wasn't going to go rob. I wasn't going to do any of that stuff that I could do to make money, but it just, the negative outweighed the positive. And then from the legal side of things, there wasn't really a lot of things that I could do. But I remember the first time that I worked in real estate, as I said, I was the only one who was brown. I was the only one that didn't come from money. So a lot of these people used to send out mailers or put out bandit signs. And I remember, I was like, dude, I remember all these people in my old office. They had bandit signs, but none of them liked placing it themselves. So why don't I offer the service of placing bandit signs for people? And this will solve two problems. This will give me money coming in, and this will get me closer to other real estate investors. Because at that point, the only real estate investing experience that I had was with this one particular company. We're a pretty small company. So I only knew who I knew. Right. And I was like, you know what? I can start this other business that will bring me money, but also, and more importantly, introduce me to other individuals that are in the real estate industry. And that's what I did. I just continued moving in that direction. I started placing out signs. I met a guy that used to print bandit signs. I approached him. I said, hey, look, I'm offering a service to place the signs. He's like, dude, really? Oh my God, I got clients out there. Like every single week, clients are asking me, do you know somebody that would place them? Do you know somebody that would place them? So my first few clients were not real estate related, but I started putting out ads on Craigslist promoting. And I think that's how I met you. I was putting ads on Craigslist promoting.
You actually called me.
Did I?
So
I saw a bandit sign or something.
I put out bandit signs, and I was doing real estate and reasonably successful. I had done a number of deals and bought a few properties, and I was putting out these signs. Now here I am. I'm working full time in my corporate gig. I'm doing some real estate on the side, and I'm handwriting bandit signs, nailing them to stakes. And then driving around, getting out of my car, running, pounding them in the ground really fast, hoping no one sees me and no one tries to steal them, and then getting back in my car and going back. And the last thing I wanted to do when I got back from work was that.
Yes.
And you called me and you said, bro, your bandit signs suck. It's in the wrong place and no one can read it. It's too small. Because I did it on like a whiteboard that was like thick paper, but it wasn't corrugated plastic like the good ones. And they were like nailed down to the ground because my stakes were only like 1.5 feet long.
Well, and what I learned from that experience was I could do this for money, but then I could add value to real estate investors. So at first it started adding value by just avoiding you doing that. Avoiding somebody like you coming home from work to then go out and place signs on a Friday night or a Saturday morning. That was the first value that I added. After that, I started adding value by, hey, your message sucks. Like, I mean, I know that you want to add all this stuff, but you're not looking at it from the customer's point of view. Because now I'm placing thousands of signs a month, for countless individuals. And as I go, like the coolest tricks that I've ever learned from bandit signs did not come from real estate investors. It came from my other clients that were using bandit signs that hired me. Like my sweet spots that I knew all came from this one client that did credit repair. One of my first clients. He's like, bro, here's the thing. I've been doing research. I count them all. Here's the sweet spots that are here's the sweet spot in the East Valley. Here's the sweet spot in the South. Here's the sweet spot in the West. Here's the sweet spots that work for me. And whatever. The other guys that I worked with, they're like, if you do this, it works better. If you do that, I found this way. I want you to do it this way. I want you to do it that way. I want you to print my signs, but they need to say this. If they say too much, people can't read them. And just a whole bunch of different things that we don't even think about, right? But then I was able to translate that information into value that I could add to real estate investors. So what I would do is I would put out ads on Craigslist. And then as I was placing the signs myself on Saturday night or Friday night, what I noticed was that the city would come and take down your signs, but they wouldn't take them away. They would literally just pull them off and throw them on the ground. So on any given corner, I could find 3 to 4 different signs with 3 to 4 different numbers. So I had a little notepad. Well, actually, no, I had a notepad at home, but I would carry, if I would go to a corner and I would see a sign that I didn't recognize, I would pick it up, because I would never take somebody's signs that were placed. But if they were on the ground, like they're already on the ground, I would pick it up and throw it in my truck. And then I would go home. So that was my weekend work. I would go home on a Monday, Tuesday, literally write down what the sign said and the phone number, and then call the people. Hey, how's it going, man? I saw your signs, and just the conversation that you had. And then sometimes I would get a name or their company information. As I started noticing that I wanted to get into real estate, not noticing, but just really like, man, I really need to start kind of making this real estate thing happen. I made it more of a priority to learn how the bandit signs work for real estate investors. So then when I would talk to a real estate investor, some guy would call me on the phone. He'd be like, hey, man, I saw you put your ad that you post ads, you post bandit signs. I'm a real estate investor. I'm looking to potentially use your service. I'm not sure or not, but here's what I can do. And I said, great, man. Well, here's what I can do. Most of my clients are real estate investors, so I can get you whatever the fuck you need. You got a property that you need to sell? Let me know. You got a house that you need to buy? Let me know. You got whatever it is? Let me know. You need to connect with somebody? Yeah, let me know, dude. You want to do bandit signs, but you don't know what messages to put. You want to know what colors work better. You don't want to know what areas work better. Great. I got all that information for you. So I eventually turned that, and my master plan from the bandit signs was to meet and real estate investors, eventually connect with 1 or 2 of them in a deeper way, and then one of those people would actually bring me into their organization and allow me to do real estate. And that's exactly what happened. Some guy ended up contacting me. He used to do automobile windshield replacement. So he initially contacted me for that, and then he got into real estate, and he kept on hiring me for the bandit signs. And then eventually he became my biggest client, and he was putting like hundreds of signs out a week. So we were constantly in contact with him, and I kept on coming over to his office. One day I'm in his office, he's talking to somebody, and because I'm a very well networked person by this point, one of the guys from my original office in Scottsdale happened to be in his office. And this guy is trying really hard. My new hopeful potential business partner is trying really hard to do business with this guy that I've known for years. Right. And I walk up in there like, yo, what's up, Mike? How's it going? And the dude's eyes open up like crazy. He's like, how do you know these people? I know everybody, man. I know everybody in the business. I've been doing business with this guy for years. So he saw the opportunity, and he let me come in his office, and eventually I became vice president of his company. And, but at that whole time though, I was never working for myself. I was always working for him. It was his show, his company. He was the face. I was just kind of doing, helping him and making a little commission here, a little commission.
So you're doing some real estate stuff, but you weren't a real estate investor,
yes,
so to speak. Got it.
And it started messing with me to the point where I knew that I wanted more than that. And initially, when I joined when I joined forces with this guy, we were going to create this business system. Which we did, but when it came time for him to actually launch it, he decided against it because he didn't want to let go of some of the control. And that, that happens a lot with entrepreneurs or self-employed people more than anything, because you're not really a business owner if you got to call all the shots. If everything runs through you, then you're going to get stuck. Right?
And as I recall, by this point, you weren't the one putting out signs. You actually had people who are putting out signs for you. So you have actually created a business with employees and people, whether they were your own or whether they were contractors.
When I started,
but you had already built a system once.
Yes,
for the bandit sign business.
Because when I started doing my bandit signs and I was putting out my marketing, my very first month or so of marketing, I used to place my ads used to say I place bandit signs, and I'm thinking about it and I'm like, do I want to be the bandit sign guy? Or do I want to have a bandit sign company? Because those are two different things. And I started noticing that. I said, you know what? No, I'm gonna just change one word from I to we. We place bandit signs. And then before you knew it, I was getting more bandit signs coming in. Before you knew it, I had to hire people. Like my first employee was a guy that I picked up from the Home Depot. Like the daily laborers that are there at the Home Depot.
Yep.
And this guy, literally, one day, 2 weeks into the business, he was my worker, but I was still out there placing signs. So we would drive off during the day, and I would be like, all right, meet me at this time here, or come to my house here, and then I'll drive, you get off, you place one side of the street, I place the other side of the street, and we can, whatever. We're putting out the signs, we're putting everything together, and he turns around and says, senor, wouldn't it be easier if we did everything this way? Man, that tip cut more than half of the time away that it took to place a bandit sign. But some tip that I learned from a fucking Mexican illegal migrant worker that I picked up at a fucking Home Depot. It was insane. So I continued doing it, and eventually I hire a few more guys, and then eventually I promote one of them to manager, and eventually that manager is now taking out the guys. And it was at the point where I didn't have to put out the bandit signs. I was just doing the sales of the bandit signs, which was better for me because I just wanted to be around real estate investors. See, the thing is I never cared for bandit signs. They were just a means to an end. They were a vehicle that was going to get me to where I needed to be. They were going to feed me until I started making the type of checks that I really wanted to be making anyway. Like I wasn't, bandit signs, people would pay me. When I first started, it was $1, then it went to $1.50, then it was $2, and then I think that I ended it at like $2.50 per sign, which I was charging people. And by this point, I had a company and I had employees and everything else, but I was charging people, so whatever, I was averaging $1.50 to $2 per sign. $100, $200 wasn't that exciting to me anymore, because now I'm looking at thousands of dollars on the potential check. But yeah, I had already built a business. And that was the whole concept of me joining teams with this guy. But it didn't work out. And I remember being upset. I remember feeling cheated. I remember feeling betrayed. I had literally let my bandit sign company die for the most part because I was focused on building this particular company, which was supposed to make us all a bunch of money. Then he was my main client in the bandit sign. So I knew that once I left his company, he was going to stop using my company for the bandit signs. And that was the majority of my money coming in right there anyway, right?
Right.
But it took the courage to say, you know what? I'm going to move forward with this. Like, I know that I'm talented and skilled enough to do this on my own. I don't know how I'm going to do it, but it's going to do it. And I think that was one of the defining moments in my life, from that and the time that I completely spaced on this particular aspect of it, but I think it goes to really answer your question, your initial question, which is, when did you know for sure that you weren't going to go back? And it was when I quit the Verizon job, but it was 100% cemented when I had to tell off my parents. And what happened was that I quit my job. The idea that I had, the plan that I had lined up after I quit that corporate job didn't work out. So now my mom, especially my mom, is talking crap as much as she can. A very passive aggressive underlying tone of, I told you so, you should have stayed. This is what happens, that type of stuff. So I called all my family to a family meeting to my house because I cook a lot. So I said, hey guys, I'm going to be cooking. Why don't you show up at my house at 6:30 and we can eat? And they showed up at 6:30 and I said, hey, the food ain't going to be ready till 7, but since you're here, I got something to tell you. And I literally told them, I'm going to do this because I'm going to do this. And I don't give a fuck what you guys tell me. And actually the fact that you guys don't like it means that I'm doing the right thing because you guys are broke and I don't want to be broke. And I love you, Mom, and I love you, Dad, but I don't want to be like you. I don't want to live the life that you do. And the fact that you're saying that I'm doing the wrong thing tells me that I'm doing the right thing. And that was the defining moment of my entrepreneurship, of saying, from this point on, I have to make it. So regardless of what happened, it didn't matter. Regardless of everything that happened in the past, it didn't matter. Regardless if I had to start a bandit sign company, that didn't matter. Regardless if I had to go work for a guy, like I worked with this guy for over a year before we finally separated ways. And I did the math and I made less than like $20,000. I made right about $20,000 that year from all the checks that we made. And I'm like, this is not what I signed up for. This is not it. But even then, it was still worth it. It was still, I knew that that nothing was going to derail me other than myself from this particular venture that I'm doing.
And so you had this realization that the people telling me I'm wrong have less money than me. And so I must be doing something right. So that was a huge mind shift. And I was reading a post from maybe 3 weeks ago, a month ago, where you posted, and you've been a hustler your whole life. I mean, you've just told everyone the stories. I mean, you were hustling to make a buck.
Yes.
And you posted that alignment is more important than hustling.
Yes.
And once you realized that you were going to align yourselves with the right people, you didn't have to hustle anymore.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about that and what it means, because it was so powerful when I read it, and it sounds like another realization for you that moved you forward.
Yeah, that's been part of my recent growth. My first tattoo on my fucking chest, and I purposely did it on top of my heart to say hustle. Like I was that guy. I was the guy that was just hard on for hard workers and hustlers and working 100 hours a week and all this other horse shit that we're taught. And as I grew into business, I really started taking on something that you're very familiar with, which is the concept of personal development. And personal development basically states that everything that happens to you, around you, is because of you. All the good that comes to you is because of you, but all the bad that comes to you is also because of you. And so I really, really started getting to personal development. And I started getting into personal development far more than I was getting into hustling. And I hardly go to real estate seminars, even though I'm in the real estate business. The majority of my seminar stuff is personal development stuff. The majority of it's kind of networking. So I grew up with this hustler mentality where I was taught that you have to work really, really, really hard to make money. And as you progress eventually in the business, a real estate wholesaler is nothing more than a really high paid salesperson. That's really all you are. So you're still hustling. You're still hustling, but instead of hustling for $1, you're hustling for $1,000 or $5,000 or $10,000, but you're still hustling. You're constantly in this tug of war of I need to work, and if I want more money, I need to work harder, and I need to work more hours. What really changed my mind was I left that guy's company. I got my very first wholesale deal solo. I made $5,000. Completely changed my life. Not because of the amount, but the knowledge of knowing, hey, I can make $5,000 by myself.
Because the other ones you were doing with partners, or you were working for somebody.
I was getting a percentage of the deals or whatever. That's why I only made $20,000. It's not like I didn't do deals. It was just the percentages that I was getting were just minuscule. So this one, it was all mine. It was 100%. I'm like, man, wow. So then I went balls to the wall with it. I set up my home office. I'm doing this. I'm doing here. So I got 2 kids, and my kids don't live with me, and they live out of state. So they come here for the summertime. And this one summer I was hustling. Like, it was my first summer working for myself, and I'm hustling my ass off. I'm working and working and working. And my daughter, she's 12 now. She must have been 7, 6 at the time. She comes up to me. She's my baby girl. She's for you guys that have daughters, especially the little ones, like, they just know how to tug at our hearts for us men. And she's like, Daddy, I never get to see you. You're always working and you never come out of your office. And I thought we came down to Phoenix to see you and hang out with you, but I don't even get to see. I work from home.
And you still didn't see your kids.
I didn't see my daughter. And it hit me hard. I remember I went to my room and I started crying because I felt like shit. Because in my mind, the reason why I'm working so hard is for my kids. And my kids are like, I don't even see you. Like, you're not here. At that point, I started realizing that there's something more than hustling. And as I've been progressing in my personal development, as I've been learning, you start personal development, as you progress and you get deeper into it, you start learning about energy. You start learning about frequencies. You start learning about vibrations. And through the book, The Secret, we, as a general population, we were introduced to the concept of the law of attraction. And that was my first introduction to the law of attraction. And I was like, there's something here more than just working your ass off, because all these people in The Secret, they talked about working, but that wasn't the main portion of it. It was about what you're attracting. So I started looking at things and I'm like, what am I attracting? If I'm putting out to the world that I'm a hustler, if I'm out there bragging all the time about how much I work, how hard I work, I'm telling the universe this is the only way that I can make money. I am literally building my own prison of I can't make money unless I work hard. If a deal's not complicated and doing all of this and coming out here, then it's not going to be worth it. And I took pride in solving complicated problems. But I realized that I was creating those problems. I was attracting those problems. It eventually come to the point where I can't make money unless I'm dealing with headaches. Because that's what I was attracting. So I'm going, and I'm going through my journey. And here probably over the last year, I've been just having this, I don't know, it's like the chip on my shoulder about hustling is the loser mentality. Hustling is a sucker's bet because you're guaranteeing that you always have to work. I remember watching a video by Grant Cardone, and he had just wrote a book or released a book, and it was like 24 hours in the day of Grant Cardone. And he flies into New York, and he's doing interviews and radio shows, and he's having meetings while he's drinking coffee, and then he goes to another interview show, and then he comes here, and late night show here, late night here, 24 plus hours of nonstop work. And all these people in the comment section, oh my God, that's amazing. You're an inspiration. I want to be like you. And I'm watching this video like, fuck that. That looks horrible. And Grant Cardone is he's a well-known public figure and everybody looks at him as an awesome businessman, and he probably is. I've never met him. But what I know is that I don't want to make money that way. And I started realizing that hustling is a lot of work. Hustling is I can fit a square hole into a round peg, or round peg into a square hole, right? Alignment is, why am I going to do that? Why don't I just look for a square hole to put this square peg in, or a round hole to put this round hole in? Why don't I just ask for that, as opposed to bragging and feeling good about how I could force this situation to happen? I started noticing that was a different alternative. And then I started implementing that technique. And then I started noticing that things were coming to me in such a less effortless manner. And before I knew it, money was flowing to me. Deals were flowing to me. Success was flowing to me. Connections were flowing to me with very to little attempt on my part. The hardest part was clarifying what it is that I wanted to do. And that's actually why I'm writing a book called Clarity Leads to Power that I'll be releasing at the end of the year. And specifically teaches that concept of how, had I not had the clarity, I would have never been able to do it. So I have students, as you mentioned. I have people that come to me and they want mentorship in real estate or business in general. And I have an exercise that I tell every single person to do. And if you're listening there and you want to make it and you're struggling in your business, or you don't know why you can't succeed, or you're working your ass off and you don't know why it doesn't get any better, here's what I would suggest you do. You take a yellow notepad. You go to a crappy hotel room somewhere that you can lock yourself in. It doesn't have to be crappy, but you just don't have to spend a lot of money either, because it's not for luxury. But you go there and you get this piece of paper. You tell your loved ones, your friends, your family, your wives, your girlfriends, your husbands, your best friends, your moms, your sisters, I'm not going to be available for a day. I'm going somewhere where I have no cell phone reception. You're not going to hear from me for a day. I'll be okay. I promise. Whatever. You don't take your laptop. You turn off your fucking phone and you write 2 essays. One of them is, who am I? And the other one is, what makes me happy? Now, the trick with this essays is that you have to do 100% honest and 100% genuine. Nobody's going to read it. Nobody's going to judge you for it. And I'm telling you because I did these exercises. And in my who am I found out that I was lazy. That was one of the things that I found. I'm pretty fucking lazy. I don't really like to work all that much. This whole hustler thing has just been a facade because I think that that's what I have to do to be successful. But I really don't like working. On the other side of what makes me happy, I love cussing. I love profanity. I love catching people off guard. I love when people look at me and say, hey man, what do you do construction? And I'm like, I own the fucking house, man. Like, go fuck yourself. And my very first flip, one of the Mexican guys working there, he's like, hey dude, are you the guy laying the tile? I'm like, no, I'm the guy paying your fucking bills. That's why. But I was dressed just like him. And I enjoy that. I get a kick out of that. So I was able to incorporate that. But the best thing that happened to me was that I realized that I was lazy. And I accepted the fact that I was lazy. So I know that I'm lazy, but I also know that I want the finer things in life. And I know that I want to do what I want to do when I want to do it. And that money requires that. Money alleviates that. But I don't want to work 100 hours a week. So how can I get these things to work without me working? And then eventually I came across business systems. But that's all with alignment. You can't do any of that stuff if you're, most hustlers are not hustlers. Most people in real estate, and you hear it all the time, I love real estate. No, you don't, motherfucker. Because if you had walkaway money, as you called it earlier, you wouldn't be doing real estate. You're only doing real estate right now because you need the money, because you're used to a certain lifestyle. If you had all the money in the world where you have $20,000, $50,000 a month coming in passively without you having to do shit, you would not be flipping a house. I guarantee you. I promise you. I don't care what you say. And that's the big concept between align and hustle. It's the hustle. How do I say this, guys? Hustle is good when in the beginning. You need hustle. You need that push. You need that determination. You need that I'm going to work regardless of what happens. Once you get your initial ball rolling, as quickly as you can turn that hustle into alignment, the better it's going to be for you. Because there's so many people that I know that make a lot of money that don't have any passive income coming in. I mean, brand name speakers, people people driving around Lamborghinis on freaking, they're national speakers about real estate, have no source of freaking passive income coming in. They're hustlers and they know how to make now money, but they don't know how to make tomorrow money. And I started realizing that, you know what? I don't really care about making a whole bunch of money. What I really care about is living the lifestyle that I wanted. And as I started getting better and as I started making money, I started traveling more. And traveling is the best education you can get, especially if you can get the fuck out of the United States, because the U.S. is, you don't realize how sheltered you are as a U.S. citizen, especially as a white U.S. citizen. You don't realize how sheltered you are, how cush your life is until you go to a different country and you see what people really live like. Our version of poor in the United States means that you don't have cable. The version of poor in Guatemala means that you're sleeping on the fucking dirt. Means that you're eating out of a trash can. Means that you're blowing fire and cleaning shoes at the age of 5 to help your mom and your 10 brothers and sisters fucking eat. Being poor in the United States means that you have Section 8 housing and food stamps. It's a completely different life. So you start getting outside of the U.S. and stuff, and you start noticing all these lessons. And I started realizing that my bliss comes from traveling. Put me in a place that I have no idea where I'm at. I don't know anybody. Give me my little stuffed monkey that I travel everywhere with. Give me my medical marijuana. Give me my headphones and some music, and leave me the hell alone, and I am in heaven. If I don't know what's around the corner, I'm in heaven. If I have to struggle to conversate with somebody so we can understand each other, like what happened when I went to Haiti, I'm in heaven. Heaven. But that's all alignment. That's all knowing what it is that you want versus wanting what you think you want. And that came from the clarity. So as I said, guys, the two essays, who am I and what makes me happy? Because a lot of times most people don't know who they are. And I use the example of a woman. You see this all the time. Women, middle-aged women, 40-something, 50, early 50s get divorced. And now they want to go balls to the wall. Now they want to go wild. Now they're sleeping with 19, 21-year-old guys. They're going crazy. They're getting boob jobs. They're dyeing their hair because they never knew who they were. They went from being somebody's daughter to being somebody's wife to being somebody's mother to being somebody's grandma or whatever it is, never having any type of self-identity, never knowing what they want, always doing what other people told them to do. Always liking other shit because people liked it. Not ever really knowing. We all have what we call guilty pleasures. What's so guilty about it? What tells you that you can't do this or do that? What tells you that as a man you can't enjoy a musical? What tells you that as a woman you can't enjoy WWF wrestling? Whatever, right? And we all do these. We all know, or we have an idea of who we are inside, but we pretend that we're not because it fits our story that we give ourselves to move forward. So to make your life easier in business, find out what it is that you truly want and then find a way to align yourself to it. The clearer that you can align yourself to your goal, the faster you'll get there, the less effort it will take, the less energy it will take, and the more enjoyable the ride will be. Yes, you could hustle. Yes, you could overcome these obstacles. Yes, you could beat that door 1,000,000 times until it breaks. Or you could just walk around the fucking wall because you don't have to do that. And that's been a big thing that I've been teaching my students. That's a big thing that I've been sharing with the world, my views and my lessons between hustling really hard and aligning.
That's awesome and a perfect place to end. I appreciate you've given me so much time, so many good nuggets in this. I'm going to have to listen to it again.
Like an hour and a half or something.
About an hour and a half.
Yeah, man. I'm telling you, most of my shows are about an hour and a half on the AZ Flip guy, so I'm used to this.
So definitely listen to this. There's going to be some great nuggets that you can pull out. Watch AZ Flip guys and follow them on Instagram. That's where I always follow them under Nomadic Nomadic Hustler.
I'm a very under Instagram at Nomadic Hustler, at Facebook at Brayand Ponciano. I spelled it before, but Brayand, that's my first name. Yes, there is a Y and there is a D at the end. So people are always like, did I get that right? But anyway, I'm an open book. Adam, you can attest to this. I'm a very open book when it comes to it. I'm always talking about my struggles, but I'm also talking about my successes. I'm talking about, like if you followed me on Facebook, you probably saw the whole process of me going to a seminar to learn about buying an apartment complex to actually buying and closing the apartment complex and everything that happened in between. I was very, very open, and I will continue to be open. I'll continue to be open with my journey, the book, and everything that I'm doing. So anyway, I appreciate your time, and thank you for letting me share my story, and I hope you get a good podcast out of it.
Yeah, I love it. I hope everyone enjoys it. Take care.
Dude.
You've been listening to the Entrpreneurs MBA. Download Adam's free book, How to Make More Money in Your Business, at www.freebookfromadam.com.